you asked about the AI censorship angle. The way AI censorship transformed the game in 2017 cannot be understated. This is a lot of people. I'm not talking about AI, the singularity threat or Skynet type stuff. I'm not talking about anything in the future. Before 2016, 0% of political speech or organic speech whatsoever on social media was censored or pre-censored or pre-filtered or flagged at all using artificial intelligence. 0%. There was AI used for content moderation before 2016, but it was for spam, which would just basically look at like rate of posting and a couple other like metadata metrics, and CP. I don't know if we're on YouTube and I can't say that phrase, but illegal child, type things. And that would simply, it's very rudimentary. It used a technique called near duplicate hashing, where there would effectively every, incident of such kind of picture or video would be in a database, and anyone who tried to post a picture that was a near duplicate of something in that banned illegal database would be pre-flagged by the AI. But no speech, not about elections, not about vaccines, not about climate change or energy policy or anything. In 2017, in Germany, a law was passed called NetzDG, which made it so that social media companies would face a $54 million fine for leaving incidents of hate speech up on their platforms for more than 48 hours after being notified. Now, that is an impossible. It effectively created a safe harbor if you have good faith systems in place in order to comply. You can't hire enough manual content moderators and adjudicate every single one of these when you're talking about this kind of volume. You need to hire 100,000 people for Germany alone.
The term hate speech, right, because it's such a loose term.
Right.
It really can mean anything.
Right. And there's so many false positives.
Yeah.
So, but that kind of safe harbor, it compelled AI filters to be put in place to comply with that law. And they proved very useful for essentially for market continuity, and because other countries were moving in that direction in a regulatory space. And there was actually pressure from the US government, from civil society organizations, from political lobbyists to use that same technology to go after political speech in general, not just hate speech in Germany. It became the standard. It solved what they called the whack-a-mole problem. When Brexit happened in June 2016 and Trump won in November 2016, they blamed it on social media because both sides, the mainstream press was completely on the other side. But they could not hire enough human moderators. All the platforms tried. YouTube hired 10,000 new human moderators like in a month, made no difference at all. But with AI, you could simply take all the slogans, all of the hashtags, all of the prefixes and suffixes. You just take the dialect, you create a code book of language, and then you simply have a rudimentary sentiment analysis, or if someone says the phrase "stop the steal" with Biden illegitimate, for example, that would give a very high toxicity score in the AI, or very high disinformation or delegitimization. Every category is a little distinct with how they apply the filters. And that would not just pre-flag it in the system, but it would allow all measure of creative censorship possibilities. If you had a 99% confidence coming from the AI, it might automatically censor it. If it has a 80% confidence, it might allow the post to be visible, but shadow ban it in the algorithm. If it comes from a high profile account that they're afraid there might be blowback, if this person is seen as being censored, they might allow the post to be up, not have it be technically shadow banned, but apply what they call a virality circuit breaker, so that it would essentially only hit a shadow ban trigger after it got something like 100,000 views or 200,000 views or the like, and allowed them to essentially have godlike control, not just over the distribution of content from the moment of posting for its entire duration, but to also control the public's perception of the censorship itself. They called this the martyr effect. And DARPA actually gave millions of dollars to groups to study this. For example, when Alex Jones was banned simultaneously by several platforms in 2018, and it was one of the first very, very high profile public figures to just be outright banned off of everything all at once. And there was a lot of social blowback, and folks were afraid of the extent of this being revealed, and they pointed to counterexamples, and it was leading to the cross-platform proliferation of this content. They said, we don't want to have this kind of problem as a go-forward thing. And so they funded millions of dollars of studies to places like the University of Washington, Harvard University, the Berkeley Data Science Lab, to all study how to create different kinds of censorship techniques that you could use with AI. You could create a network topography, and then you simply assign the confidence levels, who the triage of repeat misinformation spreaders are. And so you could say, okay, for this person, if we want to just destroy their influence, we won't, if it hits this trigger, they won't be banned, but we will do the amplification funnel is this public figure is amplified most by these 6 or 7 lieutenant type accounts, who frequently amplify it. But the public doesn't really know who they are, or doesn't really care about them. It won't be a political or international incident. So we'll just take those accounts out, or we'll do called like a random partial de-amplification, where they would say, okay, we don't necessarily go after the person we want to take out or their top lieutenants, but simply create the network topography of everybody who amplifies their account and just randomly de-amplify or randomly ban the accounts or shadow ban the accounts of 35 or 65% of those very, very small accounts, but in the aggregate make up a large portion of the amplification. So that was kind of the AI Death Star, and it destroyed the 2020 election in this country. I frequently cite how, for example, the Department of Homeland Security here in the U.S. partnered with the Stanford Internet Observatory, the University of Washington, the Atlantic Council, Graphica, Harvard Belfer Center, all these outside groups to pre-censor the 2020 election. Anyone who, quote, delegitimized election processes or results by questioning the trustworthiness of electronic voting machines or mass mail-in ballots. All of that was coerced into being a terms of service violation under threat of government regulation and fines and disfavor from a Biden administration. But that was enforced using AI. They used AI to scan the internet for all of the keywords associated with that: ballot harvesting, voter fraud, stop the steal, anything about Dominion or Smartmatic, all of this. And they would look at who was amplifying Trump tweets at the time when he was saying, don't do this. Then they would go and do the exact same thing for COVID through things like the Virality Project and the Graphica military contractors working with NATO to zap that out the moment COVID broke out. But all of that relies on huge amounts of data ingestion. Absolutely huge. You have to create, if you want to create that kind of sophisticated network map of the disinformation spreaders, you have to ingest all of their tweets. You have to be able to fine tune that data. So for example, what in 2020, they ingested 859 million tweets during the election cycle, and then used the AI to assess that 22 million of those 859 million were misinformation or relating to a misinformation narrative. They didn't manually read 22 million tweets, but because they could scrape the data from Twitter, they could create this Death Star. The Death Star was powered by the data ingestion.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Winston Marshall Show. You can click here to watch the full episode, and for more clips like this one, don't forget to subscribe. And as always, be well.